by the ones who circle round.
Hi all.
To tend these
Welcome everyone.
paths. We shall
Welcome,
be known
welcome.
by the ones who sow and reap the seeds of change.
Thanks for joining us today.
Within the earth.
We're going to wait for just a moment for more folks to arrive and we'll get started soon.
Now. It is time now that we thrive. It is time we lead ourselves into the well. It is time now, and what a time to be alive. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love.
Welcome everyone. We'll get started soon.
We shall be known by the company we keep, by the ones who circle round to tend these fires. We shall be known by the ones who sow and reap the seeds of change alive from deep within the earth. It is time now. It is time now that we thrive. It is time we lead ourselves into the well. It is time now, and what a time to be alive. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love.
Welcome everyone.
We shall be
As folks are hopping on, feel free to introduce yourself in the chat and where you're joining from, and we'll get started in just another minute.
We shall be known by the ones who sow and reap the seeds of change alive from deep within the earth. It is time now. It is time now that we thrive. It is time we lead ourselves into the well. It is time now, and what a time to be alive. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love.
All right. Welcome everyone. My name is Marissa. I'm the National Digital Strategy Director here at Sierra Club. I'm so glad to see you all here today. And I'm going to introduce this space just a bit more in a minute. But first, as we all hop on, I want to open with just some context about the moment we find ourselves in and offer a little inspiration to get us started today. Oh, but before I go any farther, I should have said that song we were listening to is the Thrive East Bay Choir performing the song by Mamuse, We Shall Be Known. And we'll see if we can drop the link in the chat in case anybody wants to listen to it again later. It's a great one. Okay, so we are really going through it right now. We are 3 months into this administration, and I know we're all seeing both the terrifying and rapid slide towards authoritarianism, but alongside some really powerful and growing advocacy with so many millions of people turning out into the streets for the hands-off protests, finding ways, small and large, to push back, to resist, to get to know their neighbors, to figure out what each of us can do right now, even amid some really hard times. And I know a lot of us are feeling scared or overwhelmed, or maybe more frozen, maybe numb, and actually not feeling very much at all. But I'm a strong believer that art and music and poetry are things that can help us get through moments like this and can help kind of put words to things that are hard to say, are hard to feel. And they can really bring us together. Even like now when we're all over the country, we're joining, we can't see each other's faces, and they can help us tap into some of the feelings that we might need to keep going. So I want to start with a quote from the wonderful Rebecca Solnit. I wonder sometimes why people assume you can't be hopeful and heartbroken at the same time, but of course you can. In times when everything is fine, hope is unnecessary. Hope is not happiness or confidence or inner peace. It is a commitment to search for possibilities. History is full of people who continue to struggle in desperate and grim circumstances, and so is the news from Ukraine to the Philippines. Some lived to see those circumstances change because of that struggle. Maybe this is what Antonio Gramsci meant with his famous phrase, pessimism of the intellect, optimism of the will. And that's from We Can't Afford to Be Climate Doomers by Rebecca Solnit. And we really are in one of those fairly grim moments. What was down is now called up. And, Trump is saying he's protecting free speech while sprinting towards free speech crackdowns and defying a Supreme Court order and asking people to report each other for DEI behavior. It's getting pretty Orwellian out there. And there's a lot of fear around, and we're seeing a chilling effect taking hold. But we are really also seeing incredible courage from everyday people, from some of our elected officials, from leaders of our institutions, and that bravery where we see it. We have to do all we can to celebrate and uplift it at every opportunity, because courage is contagious. And so is action. So with that, let's talk about action. So what are we doing here today? For those of you who are new to Sierra Club, welcome. We're so glad you're here. The Sierra Club is one of the oldest and largest grassroots organizations in the country. We have 64 chapters in every state, Washington, D.C., and Puerto Rico. We run an outings program that gets people into nature, and we run powerful campaigns at the national, state, and local level to fight climate change, protect wild places, wildlife, and our communities. And right now, you are attending our fourth National Action Hour. We started these in January around the inauguration as a way for concerned, overwhelmed, busy people to gather for 1 hour each month to make sense of what Trump is throwing at us and take meaningful action against it. These have been really wonderful spaces, drawing thousands of people from around the country every month, and it's so great to see some familiar names from previous sessions. We've also been hearing from some of you that you're looking for more ways to get your friends and family and neighbors involved. So this month, we suggested that you might want to invite someone over to watch this action hour with you. So I'm picturing some of you sitting together, maybe with a neighbor or a friend in a living room, maybe drinking some tea, getting ready to take these actions together. Or if you're interested in doing that for next month's action hour, we'd love that. It's a great way to tap into your personal networks and get more folks involved, because all you have to do is get your friends or family to show up, and we'll lead you through the rest. So what do we have in store today? Let's review the agenda. We are going to start with a quick issue briefing from one of our wonderful Sierra Club policy experts about the latest fight around the big budget bill that's coming. We're going to have a few minutes to try to answer some of your questions, and then we're going to dive into action, because that is really what these action hours are about, focused on taking action together so that you can leave this hour feeling like you really used your time well. The two actions we're going to take today are calling a member of Congress some of you, many of you have likely done this before. Maybe you've done it many times. That is great. This is another chance for us to keep the pressure on. I know I often need a reminder to keep calling. And for those who are new to calling, or those who maybe need a reminder, we'll show you how to do it and offer some specific tips for how to make it effective. There is a big difference between an effective and an ineffective call to Congress. So we'll show you how to make it more likely to reach and influence your representatives. And then second, we're going to write letters to the editor, or LTEs. We have an online tool that makes it really easy. We'll provide some sample talking points that you can use and adapt. And the tool kind of brings up the 5 or 10 local newspapers that are closest to you, and you can submit them with one click. So we'll walk you through that as well. After that, for folks who are interested, we'll let you know how you can get in your local Sierra Club chapter and take more actions wherever you live. I also want to make a quick note here about the technology that we're using. So we are streaming live across Sierra Club's YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn channels. So we have people joining across all 3 platforms today. And if you need live closed captioning, that is available on Facebook and LinkedIn. YouTube captioning will be available after the webinar is done, but unfortunately it's not available live. We do have a chat, as you all can see. Please engage in the chat. Feel free to ask questions and make comments, and our chat monitors will be working as hard as they can to reply. We may not get a response to everyone due to how many people are here, which is great, but we will do our very best. And then one final thing before we dive in, I do want to invite everyone to take a look at our community norms. Let's get that slide perfect. So we ask that you all engage with kindness and respect, and that you be willing to try things out today. Some of you might be very familiar and comfortable with the types of actions we're going to offer, and others might not be. And that's okay. We hope you're willing to give it a shot, try it out. We really welcome your questions, your comments, your constructive disagreements. But please just engage with respect. And of course, racism, sexism, prejudice, or bullying will not be allowed during the meeting. Okay, so with that, I'm going to pass it to my colleague Mahiar now to talk us through the issue we'll be focusing on today, the upcoming budget bill that Trump and Republicans are trying to ram through Congress. So if you have questions while she's speaking, please, again, write them in the chat, or and we'll have about 5 minutes to answer as many as we can after her briefing. So over to you, Mahiar.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Mahiar Saru. I'm Sierra Club's Director of Beyond Fossil Fuels Policy. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm based in Washington, D.C. So, well, first of all, just wanted to say so grateful to see so many folks join us and want to take action on these incredibly important issues. So today I'm going to talk about what we're fighting to protect, which is the clean energy and climate investments in our public lands in the budget bill that Republicans and Trump are trying to move forward in Congress. So what is this budget bill? This is a huge upcoming piece of legislation that would gut funding for critical programs that we all rely on: Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, and many of the climate and environmental programs we'd fought so hard to get. A budget is really a reflection of our values and priorities as a country. But unfortunately, the bill that Republicans are trying to ram through would be devastating to the climate, clean energy investments, to our public lands, all while to provide massive tax breaks and giveaways to corporations and corporate polluters. The good thing, though, is that there are some key weaknesses in the GOP coalition that we are going to try to exploit, really to peel off some of those votes and save these programs. So what do we mean when we're saying protect climate and clean energy investments? So as folks may remember, back in 2022, which, my goodness, feels like so many years ago now, the Inflation Reduction Act was the clean energy and climate law passed by Congress and signed by President Biden. This legislation provided hundreds of billions of dollars in investments to cut carbon pollution, create jobs, reduce energy costs for consumers, and put us ahead in the global race for clean energy. You might be aware of what the IRA, these climate and clean energy investments, is doing in your state or your community. Loans to build new electric vehicle and battery factories, green bank programs to fund climate projects, grants for states, local governments, tribes, and territories to finance plans to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and air pollution, tax credits for wind and solar power, new battery storage, EVs, home appliances, new programs for electrifying our homes and buildings, and bring clean energy to rural American communities, and so much more. Unfortunately, Trump and congressional Republicans plan to roll back all of the critical progress that we've made on climate and clean energy. So Republicans in Congress have made it clear that their top priority is to extend the tax cuts that they passed for corporations and polluters and massive billionaires that they were first able to pass in the first Trump administration. So that package really primarily was a massive handout to corporations and wealthy individuals. But to pay for these tax cuts, they're looking anywhere and everywhere for that money. Given the IRA having big investments, that means big parts of the IRA are at risk. So the question is, which parts of the law will have enough support to survive and which will not? That's why we desperately need your support and help, and it's why we're asking you to speak up for these climate and clean energy investments today by contacting your member of Congress and demand that they oppose this harmful legislation. So in addition to protecting the climate and clean energy investments in the IRA, we're also fighting to protect our public lands in this budget bill. America's national parks and public lands are part of what makes this country so great, popular across regions, generations, and political parties. They are our true common ground. But Trump, Musk, and congressional Republicans are working to give away our country's mountains, valleys, deserts, rivers, lakes, and forests to billionaires and corporate polluters. Congress must reject any plan to give away public lands for drilling, mining, logging, or other extraction to fund these tax cuts for billionaires, because our public lands are not for sale. So protecting our national parks and public lands, preserve our clean air, clean water, boost local economies, and ensure that these landscapes that make our country so great can be explored by future generations. So that was a quick overview of what we're fighting to protect, the climate and clean energy investments. Don't let Congress sell off our public lands. But what's going on right now? So the IRA, right, the implementation of this massive climate bill is already underway. But of course, these threats of Congress to try to roll them back are very real. So we know that a full repeal of the IRA or a partial repeal of the IRA are squarely on the table. As a reminder, the budget bill was enacted and the IRA was enacted by a special budget resolution, which basically means it requires only a simple majority vote. That means they only need Republicans in the House and the Senate to pass this budget bill. It will take a very large congressional coalition across the House and the Senate to really be able to make these changes to roll back these critical programs. And it's important to note that the composition in Congress, so the margins in which the House and the Senate, Republicans are in charge by a very slim margin. So every issue that is going to be in this budget bill will be under a microscope. And we know that many of the investments and the job growth spurred by the IRA are happening in red states and congressional districts. That's why we've seen dozens of House Republicans on the record supporting IRA programs. And most recently, as of last week, 4 Senate Republicans, Murkowski, Curtis, Moran, and Tillis, are pushing back against any attempts to roll back these clean energy tax credits. So that means that pushing back from communities and constituents who are benefiting from the IRA and from our public lands will matter most to members of Congress. And the folks that want to keep the IRA, especially the GOP lawmakers whose districts would be most affected, really have a fair amount of leverage in this moment. So we know there it is, right? If cutting the clean energy tax incentives aren't politically viable, they're not going to do it. And so we need to do everything we can right now to make this issue as toxic as possible and continue to drive that wedge within the Republican Party to protect these critical investments and not let Republicans sell off our public lands. So just last week, Republicans passed the first step in this budget reconciliation process that's known as the budget blueprint. This provided instructions now to the committees in Congress to start drafting the specifics of what's going to be in this budget bill. And right now, Congress is actually out for a 2-week recess. That means members of Congress and senators are back home in your state, in your district, which is why it is so critical for folks to be taking action, reaching out to their members of Congress to demand that they oppose this harmful legislation. And on that, I will stop, turn it back to Mo, and happy to answer any questions that folks have.
Awesome. Thank you, Mahiar. We got a lot of great questions coming in. Let's answer a few now. Okay. And folks, feel free to keep sharing questions in the chat right now if you have any. So first one from Alyssa. Isn't renewable energy less expensive than coal, oil, or gas at this point? So why are they doing this? Isn't it more efficient and economical just to go with clean energy? Oh, you're on mute, Mahir.
You could not be more correct with that statement. Renewable energy, wind, solar are the most reliable, most affordable sources of energy in this country, which is why we've seen such a massive influx of growth in that sector over the last few years in the Biden administration. Unfortunately, though, this administration and Republicans in Congress care more about selling off our public lands and moving us backwards in trying to prop up dirty energy like coal, oil, and gas, all to provide incentives and support to their billionaire buddies and fossil fuel executives. So ultimately, that is what is driving this budget bill. Not a pathway that we know, which is renewable energy that lowers costs for consumers and provides cleaner, more affordable energy for all communities.
Right. And like you said, Mahiar, that is the truth. It is cleaner. It is, less expensive, and it is creating a lot of jobs, which is, to your point earlier, why we're seeing some Republicans in Congress actually come out in support of it, because they're seeing all these benefits go to their districts. Yeah. Okay, let's see. A few questions here about people who are saying, all of my reps are either strong Democrats. I assume they're already, in support of this, or on the other hand, all of my reps are, really strong Republicans, MAGA supporters. There's no way. So what would you say to people who aren't sure, what I'm hearing is aren't sure that their calls or their, letters or their pressure is going to do anything? Or maybe, why does it even matter if the member of Congress already supports, clean energy and public lands?
It's a great question. And I just want to say thank you to folks who have been continuously calling, sending emails, reaching out to your member of Congress. I know we're going to get into a little script and sort of show how it's done later on. But I just want to say, as someone who worked in Congress for a number of years, those calls, even if you are in a state or a district that is very prominently Democrat, those lawmakers still need to hear from you so that they continue to feel accountable to you as your constituent. And if they're not hearing from you, well, oftentimes they may vote a certain way, but they're not speaking out as often as they can be. We need champions in Congress who are consistently speaking out on these issues, not just going and we obviously want them to vote the right way, which is great they are. But we also need them to continue to speak up in any moment that they can. On the Republican side as well, I think it is super important for those members of Congress to feel accountable to you. And ultimately, folks will decide when elections come up later of whether or not that member deserves to stay in office if they're not voting the right way and taking the right stance on issues.
Great. Okay, let's take one more and then we want to move into action. Well, here's a quick one I can do. Will we get all this information via email after the webinar? Yes, we will send all of this out to you afterwards so that you can keep calling if you want later or send it to friends. So let's see, one more for you, Mahyar. Where can we find specifics about which IRA, Inflation Reduction Act, clean energy projects are underway in our state near us?
I believe we have a ton of really helpful resources. I see one actually here from Rewiring America. We also have a Sierra Club specific. We have a ton of resources. We're happy to share after the call.
Great. So we'll work on digging up that link. If we can't find it right now, we'll send it out afterwards. And let's get into the calling. Okay, so let's pull back our action slides and dive in. Thank you, Mahyar. So, like I said, the two actions that we are taking together today are calling our reps and writing letters to the editors of local newspaper. So let's start with calls. So calls are consistently ranked as a top way to persuade a member of Congress who has not come to a firm position. Because, like Mahyar said, staffers count these calls, even voicemails, and they make reports on how many they receive about any given topic. And especially on an issue like this, where it is very controversial, Republicans need every single vote, and peeling off just one or two makes a huge difference. So, you might have seen reports on the news about how phones are ringing off the hooks lately and how offices are overwhelmed with calls. This is a really, it's a small, fast, easy action, and alone, it doesn't make a huge difference. But together, right, when all of us are doing it, it adds up. At our first 2 action hours, we placed about 1,000 calls, just us in that 1 hour each time. So that is really significant. And we need to keep up the pressure. So, like I said, there is a big difference between an effective phone call and an ineffective phone call. So let's see. There's a few key things to remember. I think we have a slide on this too. First, you need to identify yourself as a constituent. They need to know that they actually represent you. So we don't recommend calling members of Congress who are not your own. The second is, can we go to the next slide, please? The second is be specific. So name the policy that you are concerned about and the action that you want them to take. 3, be personal, right? I saw someone in the chat suggesting that we add personal stories. Yes, we fully agree with that. Naming the impact that it will have on you really makes a difference. And then finally, follow the ABCs, be accurate, be brief, and be courteous. Even if you're calling a representative whose views you really disagree on, we are counting on these staffers to relay our messages, and we need to, help them do their job, get our message across, even if we don't share the same views. So to show you what this looks like, Mahyar and I are going to do a very quick practice. So Mahyar, why don't you pretend that you are calling, and I'll pretend to be the staffer.
Great.
Okay. Ring, ring. Good afternoon. Congressman Kelman's office. How can I help you today?
Hello, my name is Mahyar Saru, and I'm a constituent from Indianapolis. My zip code is 46250. I'm also a volunteer with the Sierra Club. So I'm calling today because I want Congresswoman Kelman to protect the clean energy and climate programs from being cut in the upcoming budget bill, and to keep our public lands from being sold off for oil and gas leasing. As one of the Congresswoman's constituents, it's extremely important to me that she prioritizes protecting climate programs and public lands. The clean energy investments are already creating thousands of jobs at a new manufacturing plant in Kokomo. So gutting these clean energy programs means that we'll lose those jobs. Opening up public lands for drilling means sacrificing precious ecosystems and making climate change even worse. So thank you for listening. I appreciate your time and hard work, and I hope the Congresswoman considers my views on this important issue impacting her constituents.
Thank you so much for your comments. I will pass them on to the Congresswoman. Done. That was pretty easy, right? It takes 2 minutes, and I know it always leaves me feeling good. Even if it was quick, just something you can do that, yeah, contributes to the groundswell of public pressure. And also kind of like I'm connected to all the thousands of people who I know are also calling their representatives right now. So let's do it. For folks who are in Eastern or Central time zones, you will probably have your calls go straight to voicemail, and that is fine. Voicemails are counted just the same as they would if you reached a staff person live. And if their voicemail is full, we do encourage you to try back again tomorrow or another time when you can reach someone live. If that's what happens to you right now, then maybe for the next few minutes, you could consider practicing your call script, what you're going to say instead. So we're all going to go on mute in just a minute, and you can call the number on your screen, and you'll be automatically connected to your representative. And yeah, we'll come back. We'll go on mute and come back in just a minute. I'm going to call too. I know it really helps me to see hundreds of you doing it alongside me. So good luck, and we'll see you in a few minutes. And feel free to put in the chat when you're done. All right, seeing more and more people saying you're done, left a message, you reached someone, a lot of voicemails, that makes sense. Great, someone in Sacramento reached a live person. I feel empowered, so glad to hear that, Pat. Ugh, mailbox is full. Left a voicemail. Great. Wonderful. Okay, amazing. Oh, this is great. I also left a voicemail. And I was a little nervous, even though I've done it before, but get nervous every time. It's great. Okay, we are going to move on to our next action. And I am, so thrilled to see all these report backs, all your comments saying you called. So for those who are going to do it tomorrow, that's wonderful. If you did it today and you want to do it again tomorrow, go for it. Let's keep up the pressure. Okay, we're going to move on to action number 2 now. I'm going to pass it to my colleague Hillary to walk us through it.
Hey all, thanks Mo. All right. So now we're going to write letters to the editor together. So letters to the editor, also colloquially sometimes known as LTEs, are something that we can write to local papers or magazines to show support for different policy or opinions on different issues that are affecting us. So I'm going to start by just sharing a little bit about why letters to the editor are such an important tactic for us to engage our represented officials around these issues. So letters actually usually appear in the first section of the publication. And also the opinion section is often the most read section of any news outlet. They're also particularly useful for legislative advocacy, which is exactly what we're trying to do, because legislative staff actually closely monitor the opinion pages of newspapers in their districts. So there's actually a really good chance whoever you're trying to reach will see that. So yeah, we have a pretty simple tool, which is you can see is on the screen, and we'll also share in the chat for sending your letter. But I want to share my screen and walk folks through that really quickly. You're welcome to open the link and check it out, but I'm going to present and share. So let me do that really quickly. Okay, hold on. All right. Sorry, StreamYard, I have to do a couple of steps to get it up there. So sorry, I'm looking for, doesn't want to go on the screen. Does anyone, Mo or Emmy, can you get that on the screen? I might not be able to share. There we go. Great, thank you. Okay, so here is, oh, I'm so sorry, this is the back end. Okay, so this will load in 1 second. Okay, so here's what it looks like. You can see that I already saved my information because I've written a letter before. But basically, we have a pre-written letter right here with some talking points and a little bit more about the legislation that Maher was telling you about. You don't have to leave this letter. In fact, it's a really good idea to edit the letter and make it more personal. So for example, I live in Denver, Colorado, so I might say Colorado leaders in the subject line. And then I might say I'm writing to urge, I could say elected officials in Colorado, or I could say I know my representative is Diana DeGette, so I might say her name specifically. And then that makes it so that it'll be clear that this letter is from someone specifically. And the more you customize your letter, the more likely it is to be published. So I would also recommend that folks add a little bit of information about themselves in this letter. So you could say something like, I support climate action because I am a healthcare professional, or I live in an area that experiences air pollution, or I am a parent. Whatever you can do to make this a little bit more like it's from an individual person and not a form letter, which is basically what we have right now, the more convincing it'll be if it does get published, and also the more likely it is to get published. So a couple other things about this tool. So it's a fairly standard form, which you've probably used before for petitions and signing up for an event. You put in your information. One thing that's important to note is that news editors will not publish your contact information. So this is your things like your address are to check that you live near the publication and that you are who you say you are, but they're not going to put that in your published letter if they decide to publish it. And then with the tool itself, when you put in your zip code, it will pull up 10, if there are 10 near you, local outlets that once you click the submit button, submit your letter, that will receive your letter that you've drafted. So for example, if I looked at this list and for whatever reason I didn't want to send to the Denver Voice or Colorado Statesman, I could just uncheck those two boxes and not send to those two papers. Okay, so once I've drafted my letter and made any edits, I'm going to click submit my letter. I haven't made I've made a couple edits, so I'm not going to personally submit it yet. But yeah, we're going to give folks a little while to actually put their letters together. And I think that the link has been shared in the chat. We also have a worksheet that we'll be sharing around tomorrow, and we also shared in the chat that has the sample letter. So if you want to copy from that worksheet to make your own, you're welcome to do that. And again, this template letter right here. It is just a suggestion. You don't have to use this at all. You can actually just delete. I would keep Dear Editor because that will pull the publication name, and I would keep this information section, but you can delete this whole thing and completely write your own letter. It's totally up to you. The only thing I would recommend is letters are more likely to be published if they're under 150 words. So this template is right about 150 words. So if you're going to add a bunch of information, I would probably try taking something out. Okay, so let me go back to the slides. All right, great. Okay, so we're going to get started writing in just a moment. The one other thing that I want to note is, sorry, next. Yep, so we have this letter right here. And let me check really quickly to see if there are any clarifying questions, and then we can get started. I see a question about any way to get a link for submitting the letter without scanning the barcode. Yes, absolutely. Just go to sc.org/actionlte. Okay, great. I don't see any other clarifying questions, so we're going to give folks about 5-6 minutes to actually edit and submit your letters. So we have shared the link in the chat, and if for whatever reason that's not enough time for you to finish writing your letter, that's completely okay. You can finish your letter after the call or tomorrow or whenever makes sense for you. All right, I'll let folks get started and play some music while we take action. Amazing work, all. I see a few folks have submitted. We'll just give it another minute or so. So a few more. Yeah, another couple minutes. So a few more folks can share. But thank you. Keep sharing in the chat, and feel free to say where you submitted your letters to. Okay. I see folks are wrapping up. I see a couple of people had some trouble with the form. So we will send this around tomorrow on the off chance that you are having any issues. Hopefully you'll be able to follow along with the worksheet tomorrow and write a letter. If you still aren't able to get the form to work for whatever reason, I would just recommend putting in your address, like searching your address and looking for the letters to the editor at your local paper. You can submit directly, you can directly email your letter to the newspaper. So someone suggested that in the chat. That's really great information. You can absolutely send just directly to your paper via email. And one other question to address from the chat very quickly. Yes, if a news outlet gets multiple similar letters from different people, they will only publish one of them if they publish any of them. So the more customized and unique you can make your letter, the more likely it is to that they will publish multiple letters on the same topic sometimes. So great questions. I think we're going to move on. I'm going to pass it over to Sarah from the chapter support team. But feel free to keep sharing your questions, and we can address some of them in our next steps.
Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for showing up today and taking action. Yay, we all did something. I'm excited to be here with so many fierce climate champions, especially as we celebrate Earth Month. I'm Sarah Clark. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm joining you from Denver, Colorado, where I am the Western Regional Chapter Capacity Director here with the Sierra Club. Y'all, let's be real. Polluters and corrupt politicians are doing everything they can to push dangerous policies and threaten our climate, our communities, and our future. But we're not backing down. And we're not alone. With 64 chapters all across the US, including Puerto Rico, Sierra Club's rising up to the occasion. We're organizing, we're rallying, we're knocking doors, showing up at city halls and state capitals and fighting like hell to protect our winds and even pushing to advance more. Our chapters are really leading the way locally, holding polluters accountable, driving bold clean energy solutions, protecting our air, water, and public lands, and making sure our voices, your voices, not corporate lobbyists or Trump's buddies, are shaping our future. Whether it's launching grassroots campaigns, getting people outdoors to connect with the places that we're fighting for, or meeting face to face with lawmakers, we're turning all of this passion and action into power. And as Mahier said earlier, right now is a really important moment to take action and show up as the federal budget is being decided. We've developed a toolkit with resources and important information on what's happening at the federal level and tactics available to folks like you to be able to do actions in your own communities. The toolkit will really help you meet the moment we're in and will guide you in taking actions to protect public lands and clean energy and investments locally. So there's going to be a link to this toolkit in the chat. You'll learn so much more there. Our team is here to work with you and help you fuel all of this energy and continue to move forward. We work directly with chapters that strengthen organizing, grow volunteer leadership, and build this movement rooted in the community. So if you're ready to do even more than what we're already doing, please, please, please fill out the form that's also in the chat. This will help me connect you directly with the chapter that's in your area. I saw some folks in here from Colorado. I saw some folks in here from, I think, Idaho and other places all over the West. I would love to see you out there. The moment to act is right now, and I hope to see you taking action here locally and all around our communities. Thanks.
Thank you, Sarah. I'll just do one more pitch for joining our amazing chapters. I know a lot of people are looking to get more involved where you live, to find people to meet face-to-face and organize with in your communities. So our chapters are a wonderful way to do that. So again, there's a link in the chat for the form, and we will send all of these links out in an email after the session is done. Okay. Great. So with our final few minutes, we're going to ask you all for one more thing, which is to fill out a very quick survey. Like we said, this is a relatively new program, so we would really love your feedback. We're going to be back again next month with another action hour, so you can help us improve. So please, if you have just 1 to 2 minutes, I think there's only 3 questions in this survey. It'll just take a second. Stay on and let us know what you liked today, what was helpful, or what can we do better? What kind of actions would you be most interested in doing in the future? We often change up the actions from month to month, so let us know. And once you've finished the survey, feel free to hop off. But we would appreciate it so much if you could take a few minutes just to let us know how it went today and what you'd like to see moving forward. So that survey link is in the chat, or you can use the QR code on the screen. Great. And I'll also just share that we have submitted 80 letters to the editor already, just in the last 30 minutes or so. And I know some of you are still working on drafting your letters. So I bet we're going to get to 100 by the end of this. So that is pretty amazing. So thank you all for spending the time, for sharing your thoughts, for making a call. I saw a few of you said it was your first time calling your members of Congress. That is great. We're so glad this helped you get there. Thank you all for being here. And we will follow up with all of the links. I see Holly asking for a link to join your chapter. Yes, we will send a link to join your chapter, for the survey, to finish writing your letter to the editor, or to call again. Feel free to keep taking these actions and to share all these links with your friends and family. You can get more people involved all around you, your friends, your family, your neighbors. So thank you all for showing up today. And we hope to see you again for for our next May Action Hour or even before then. All right. Thank you all so much. Take care. Once you've finished the survey, feel free to hop off.